These days, we use robots and automation in more and more places in our life. In this video, I wanted to talk about 3 areas where the data really suggests you should be relying on robots and automation when it comes to your investing. And then one area where I think humans do it better. So when it comes to automation, the first area I think absolutely robots do a better job is in actually determining your asset allocation. So a lot of discretionary fund managers like to guess what percentage you should have in different assets, but actually the data suggests, and there has been a Nobel Prize in economics won for this, there is an optimal strategy for actually building asset allocation, and that's a strategy that really tries to give you the best possible return for the least amount of risk. We call this portfolio theory, which was the name given to it when they won that Nobel Prize back in 1990. But this is the reason within the stock spot portfolios why we have a relatively high allocation to gold, because when you model it and you let the robots actually calculate the optimal asset allocation, gold actually comes up as an asset you should have a substantial allocation to in order to counterbalance other assets when they're not performing so well. And that certainly worked for us over the last 10 years. The next one is determining when to rebalance. Now this one, I think a lot of fund managers think they know when they can pick the market tops and market bottoms, but usually they get it wildly wrong. They're too bearish at the bottom, they're too bullish at the top. In fact, robots and automating your rebalancing, I think, is a much more sensible way of doing this. It takes off risk when things get heated. It adds risk when everyone else is frightened. It's helped our clients in many periods of time, including in 2020, when we were rebalancing by adding risk back in April 2020, when everyone else thought the world was going to end, and then reducing risk in November 2020 when its markets had rebounded. Now, this was very counterintuitive at the time, but it was an automated process, and that's why it actually worked better than a lot of the discretionary decisions that fund managers were making. And the last area that robots have done a much better job at managing when it comes to investing is actually security selection. And this really comes down to how indexing works, because indices actually automate the process for deciding which stock should come in and out of an index and therefore an ETF. And although it may seem a bit counterintuitive that a robot could do that better than a human, the evidence shows that something like 90% of the time ETFs do better than active fund managers who are trying to pick their shares themselves and decide which ones to come in and out. And these are 3 areas that I think if you can get automated in your portfolio, you've got a great potential to beat 90% of the population who are guessing and making their own discretionary human decisions, where actually automation makes a lot more sense. Now, there is one more area that I wanted to talk about, which is actually keeping people invested when markets are volatile. Now, this is an area that I haven't yet found a way that robots can do this better than humans, and that's why we have a team of people at StockSpot that our clients can call when markets get volatile, because what we find is that having a conversation with someone is a lot more valuable than getting an automated message or a robot message telling you to stay invested and not worry about markets. I'm not sure what it is. I think it's partly the human connection and also the trust that people have in people rather than machines. But certainly when it comes to your own behavior and making sure that you're able to stay calm and keep your nerves when markets are volatile, I still think this is a job better done by humans than robots, but I may be proven wrong over the next 10 years as more and more people trust AI and automation to actually guide their investing decisions. But at StockSpot, that's not something we've seen yet, and that's why we still have lots of clients calling our customer team in order to make sure that they're doing the right thing. And in my view, that's where robots do things better with investing and where humans can still lead the charge.